Okay, hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Masculinity Unmasked, the fortnightly conversation that delves deep into what it means to be a man in the 21st century. The topic of conversation for today's episode is Beyond the Taboo, a conversation about mortality. So, a very important topic, but something that's rarely talked about, especially on podcasts. Unfortunately, my co host and fellow coach Greg Stein is unable to make it this evening. So we're going to miss his vibrant energy tonight. But we are very lucky to have with us a very interesting guest this evening, Luis De Oribe, who is a grief coach, suicide counselor, and death doula. So, Louise, welcome to the show and thanks very much for joining us this evening. Do you want to start by sharing a little bit about yourself and the sort of work
Mhm.
that you do?
Sure. Thanks, Max, for having me here. Well, I'm a grief coach, yes, and I work, mainly with the last stages of life, with people that have been diagnosed terminal illness. And I work as a grief coach with people grieving, of course. And I'm finishing actually now my program on suicide awareness. That is another very deep, interesting subject.
Mhm. And we were talking before you came on that there's almost
Hmm.
three main limbs to your work. There's sort of the death
Yeah.
stuff, the grief stuff, and then
Yes,
the
yeah,
suicide
even
stuff.
all of them they have this common, the denominator that would be death, but they're very different approaches. Yes.
Yeah, different
Yeah,
approaches.
definitely. Yeah.
And
Yes.
and so tonight we're going to focus although there is that sort of interlinking between them all, that
Mm-hmm.
the first of
Mm-hmm.
those, which is death, the taboo of
Uh-huh.
talking about death, the
Yes.
fear of death, all those things. And I
Yes.
really liked what we were saying in our conversation just before we came on tonight. You described it as sort of something that's in the closet, a bit like,
Completely.
homosexuality in the
Absolutely.
past and
It's
how
the
it's still in the
ultimate
closet.
taboo now. Yes, absolutely.
So
Yes.
our plan today together is to drag it
Mm-hmm.
out of the closet and shine a light on it
Fantastic.
for
Yeah.
our listeners.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm really curious then to start off with what got you into this work in the first place?
Well, actually, my I was trained as an acupuncturist, so I was working in my 20s, and then I've been working as an acupuncturist for palliative treatments in Ibiza, and treating them. Okay, with time I realized that these people really needed was coaching than more than palliative treatment. The physical pain was nothing compared to the pain of the soul that these people were feeling. Okay,
Mhm.
these people were completely desperate and lost. Okay, when they're facing their own demise. So, because passion has always been my death has always been my passion for decades. So I've been researching death since I remember, really.
Mhm.
And so I realized I was really helping them much more actually as a coach, yes, than as an acupuncturist.
Yeah.
So that's when I started to get into coaching and death doula and and grief counseling. So so yeah, that's how
Mhm.
I finally got into this.
Yeah. And for those listening who, don't know what death coaching or a death
Hmm.
doula is,
Yeah.
could you just explain a little bit about the sort of work that you do in that arena?
Is actually we feel a very blank point that is that when someone is diagnosed a terminal illness, they usually get a little tap on the back. They get them lots of drugs and good luck. Okay. They need to see what they're gonna do when you're facing the last stages of life. What do you do? Where do you start? Okay. How do you put your life in order? How do you face it? Okay. Let's not forget the concept we have from death is the same one from the Victorian times. Okay. It hasn't evolved our concept of death. Science has advanced immensely. Uh, in all sense, we have really moved on in so many ways. But the concept we have of death is that the same one from the Victorian times. You're a physical body, that physical body will die, and your consciousness and nothing will cease to exist. Goodbye. That's all we know about it. And it
Mhm.
is so shocking that nobody talks about it, nobody evolves this concept. And science has really moved on from that. Okay,
Mhm.
so if you realize the concept we have about death predates Einstein. Albert Einstein, in 1905, he published his theory of relativity. And in it, actually, he shows how the fabric of space-time, that would be the physical world as we know it, bends, it fluctuates, okay? With forces like gravity, they bend, okay, the physical world. This concept has evolved even further in the 50s with the string theory, when they insist that in order for the physical world to exist as it is, it has to be inside a multidimensional world.
Mhm.
In other words, we live inside our universe is multidimensional. Okay, this is what science is saying nowadays. So we need to update this concept because it's not really that far-fetched to think that if we live in a multidimensional beings, we live in a multidimensional universe, we might be in multidimensional beings. You understand?
Yeah.
So then we can turn, for example, we can study history, and in history we have more of the same. In every single civilization during centuries, you always have had a spiritual leader claiming that we are more than just our physical bodies. Okay? In other words, claiming that we are multidimensional beings.
Mm.
So this is just about putting the pieces of the puzzle together, okay? And we will reach really interesting conclusions, okay? So we really need to evolve this concept of death that we have from the Victorian times, you know? It is really life-changing, these concepts. To update them is really important, because when you're facing the last stages of life, and we all gonna face them, every single human being, okay, then we need to have this very clear, because if not, you're gonna be completely lost. And the last stage, that should be the last stage of your journey in this life, should be good, should be about celebration. Okay, come on, it's the last stage of your journey. Okay, it could have been something really interesting, and it's horrible. Okay, the way those people are dealing with it. Okay, it's such a pity. Okay, they're really missing the most important part of their lives.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because there's a lot of taboo around talking around death. And as soon as it's
Absolutely,
mentioned, we sort of pop it away. But then maybe a
absolutely.
loved one gets sick or we get sick and then we're confronted with it. But
Yes, sooner or later it
there's no,
will happen.
yeah, yeah.
So
But
I'm sorry to say.
there's no blueprint for us.
Yeah,
And isn't that
yeah,
fascinating? It's the only journey that we're all going to go on, apart from having been
exactly.
birthed. We're all going to die, but there's not a blueprint. And
Nothing.
that is extraordinary. So what
It is.
why do we think that's the case? Why is it the case that we're not given a blueprint? You know, in early years,
Yeah,
this is
because
what's going to happen.
society prepares us for every single thing in life, okay? But not the only one that you would definitely go through,
Mm,
ironically. I do believe it really has a lot to do about materialism. We live in a very materialistic society. So if you're gonna accumulate things all your life and making more money and making more success in this and that and achieving more material things, buying a house, buying this and that, if you really have the knowledge that you're just going to live here a few decades, okay, then your values will really change. Because that's
mm,
what everybody tells me in the last stages. When they diagnosed, okay, a terminal illness, they all tell me, why did I bother? Okay, working 8 hours per week in a job I didn't like, so that at 65 I get this pension that actually just lasts 1 decade and a half, okay, 2, 3 the most, and that's it. For what? Okay,
mm,
that's what they all say, okay,
mm.
at that stage. So would really that would really change. Society would really change. So I don't think they really like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, isn't it? How would our
It is,
values
isn't it?
change if we really sat
Uh-huh.
with that
They definitely
the
would.
concept? And
Yeah.
it's almost like, you know, I talk to clients a lot about the fears of moving forward with change, and a lot of
Yeah.
the time there's
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Because you're a transformational coach. Yeah,
one
of
day
course.
I'll do this, one day I'll do that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like
Yeah.
there's some point in the future where that thing will be dealt with. And it sounds similar
Uh-huh.
with the death.
Yes.
One day I'll deal with that, but I
Absolutely.
can push that back.
Yeah. That's what we
And
have
then
in common. Your coaching and mine, isn't it? What
yeah,
I was
yeah.
telling you before. Yeah.
But it
Absolutely. Yeah.
but
Is it
it
worth it?
yeah.
Is it worth it? Why am I doing this? What for exactly? You know?
Mhm, mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah. Now,
And so
some people, they do that before they are being diagnosed. Okay, if they're lucky enough, they do that change before and they go to you. Okay, if it's after being diagnosed, then they come to me. you know.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of
But it's
putting it, isn't
definitely
it?
that, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
really
I mean,
interesting.
we
Yeah.
have different pain points, don't we, in life, and they're usually the
Hmm.
pivot for
Yeah,
change.
yeah.
But it
Yeah, mine are more drastic, but
but
yeah,
yeah, in the
definitely.
death world, there's but they
Yeah,
are they separate things is an interesting question, right? Because you know often these pain points are the things that get us to think about our core values because we realize
absolutely.
how short life is because of the pain
Yeah,
points. So it's
yeah,
all interlinked,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. Yeah. And
there's
pain
this
expands consciousness,
yeah.
and that is the truth. So yeah, 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 definitely.
I'm really fascinated by the fifth dimension stuff, and we can come back to that. The taboo. I mean, you say that we're stuck in this Victorian construct. There's another way
Yeah.
of looking at that, which is fascinating.
Mhm.
But there's also this question of fear, right? Um, People
Absolutely.
shy away from fear. We don't want to be talking about the
Yes,
thing that
yeah,
scares us the most.
yeah. That's what I was saying before. Death. I'm sorry. Death is definitely the biggest fear of mankind. Okay, most of the fears. Okay, of all the other fears. Okay, they come out of this one. Okay, like we were saying, fear of spiders, of this or that. Actually, they are because they might bite you and you might die. Okay, so
Mm,
death is really the major fear behind. So yes, absolutely, it's
yeah.
really driven by fear. So I guess as well, that's why society decided, oh, we don't want to talk about it. Okay.
Mm,
I guess as well, it happened when society in the 1800s, they decided to move, or 1700s, move on from superstition and dogma, from religions to science, and then they lost that thing because let's face it, religions can be very positive in the sense that you get a lot of mysticism, a spiritual informational knowledge, but it's full of superstition and dogma. Dogma means that they're trying to impose you all this behavioral system, okay, to control you, sort of, you shouldn't do this, that is bad, that is good, you should do this and that. So when society moved out of that, then they relied on science, but science was quite new as well, wasn't it,
mm,
in the 1800s?
yeah.
So they didn't really have much to base their new concept of death with science. And somehow it got stuck there.
Mm, 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 yeah. We're in a
Interesting.
place now where some of us are still
Yeah.
stuck there. Many of us are
Yeah.
still stuck there.
Yeah, but it's something that people need to go and find their answers. Okay, there's
Mm,
something that I always found very frustrating. People saying, "Oh no, you can never have a proper, okay, understand that. No, that would always be a mystery." No, okay, those answers are there. Look for them. Okay, search for those answers because they are there. Okay, and this is not about imposing a new belief system. Okay, because there are plenty of those already. Okay, this is about, and this is something that for me is very important. I always go back to Albert Einstein when he says that real knowledge is experience. The
mm,
rest is just information. Okay, so I can give you all the information, okay, you may want, but that would just be information. That would just be, maybe I believe it, maybe I don't. No, you have to experience this, okay? And there are ways to experience your reality beyond your physical body, okay? There are many ways to do it, okay? So go for that experience because that will be knowledge. Then you will know when you're facing the last stages of life, you need knowledge. Belief will not be enough. Okay, having all these beliefs, yeah, maybe religion, and I believe maybe there's a God with a long beard looking down at me. Okay, those beliefs are not good enough. You need knowledge. You need your own experience beyond your physical body. Then you will be quite comfortable with it. Okay,
mm.
so it is really important to do that. Which ways we were talking about how could you experience a reality beyond your physical body? For example, with OBEs. OBEs is the term it's fashionable to use now. They were called astral traveling, okay, a couple of decades ago. Out of body experiences, they call them now. Now it's more scientific, okay? You have these big guides for you to train yourself on that. They're not easy to do, but if you have discipline, you can achieve them, okay?
So, for those listening who are thinking this
Yeah,
is all very abstract, um,
yes.
how would somebody go about going on an OBE journey? What does that look like? If we strip away all the layers,
Yes.
what does that look like
Um,
on a practical level?
on a practical level, how would you start doing it, you mean?
Mm. Yeah, how would someone go on that
Um,
journey?
I actually I help my clients to do one as well, to do them. just enough so for them to experience this reality, okay? Not to get professionally, okay, really, really into it completely, master it completely, but deep enough so that they can't experience themselves this. It starts with guided meditations. It's moving your consciousness. For example, first you move your consciousness inside your body, okay?
Mm.
That will be the first step. Once you manage to move your consciousness in your hand, down your throat, to your shoulders, down to your knees. Once you move your consciousness around your body, then you start training yourself to move your consciousness just around your body, just outside, but just follow the skin of your body, okay? And slowly. And then you start doing the same a little further away, okay? Until you realize you're just looking at your own body, okay? That would be, okay, the summary of how it works.
Mhm.
Okay, and then you realize my physical body is not just, that's not what I am. I'm far more than that.
Mm. That's
It's
fascinating.
really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I want as well to go in the more practical terms, okay? Because this really depends on each individual, okay? When you're facing the last stages of life, when you're facing a terminal illness, there are many things you need to focus as well. Not only this, I call them, it's a 3-point program that is very important, and it's forgiveness, okay? Something you have to deal with it, okay? You wouldn't believe how many people that die in their deathbeds asking, please ask this person, tell this person that I'm sorry or so. It's a major thing that they need to focus, okay? And it's very good for you to have a proper journey, okay, to the afterlife, to whatever you want to call it, okay? Forgiveness is essential, okay? Because guilt, it really holds everyone back when they're dying,
Mm.
okay? So it's really important. And then is the sense of, and this is very important after forgiveness, after guilt, is legacy, is what you want to leave behind. Okay, build something you want to leave behind. Now, legacy is a very big word, isn't it? We all think it's just for super rich that they create all these charities and that. No, it goes on many levels. Everyone lives a certain kind of legacy. Even if planting a tree, okay, whatever you want to leave behind, okay, it's an essential need of man. For some reason, you always see it, okay, when people are dying, they regret not having left a legacy of any sort, okay? Writing a book, anything, okay? It's important for them to work on a legacy.
Mm.
If you realize in life coaching, they teach you something that always stuck to me and that I found very interesting, that you have 3 stages of life. The learning years, when you learn, when you go to university and that. The earning years, when you start to make your money. And the legacy years, okay, is to start planning what you're going to leave behind, you know. And many people, they skip the last one, okay, because they're still earning and earning, earning and earning and earning, okay, and they deeply regret it when they die, okay. It's just what did I want to leave behind? So those 2 other points are very important as well, okay? And then understanding up to how much they're ready for it, okay? Each people its own. Some people just to read about these things, to listen about this is enough for them. Other people, they got what they need to go all the way, okay? Where am I going? How? I need the answer. Some people, they deeply really need them, okay? Some other people, no, okay? So that really depends on each individual. But those are the 3 main things when someone is facing, okay, the last stages.
Okay.
The
That's
yeah.
that's really fascinating. To see it as a
Uh-huh.
process there, and to hear that those are the things that people are thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
from your
Always.
experience. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering for our listeners. So
Yeah.
there may be listeners who have been given a terminal diagnosis, unfortunately, but there
Mm-hmm.
may also be listeners that haven't, but still have a fear of death that's maybe holding them back.
Yes.
Is this
Mm-hmm.
is this sort of an antidote to that, almost, to begin to bring that into their lives?
Yeah.
Forgiveness, thinking about legacy, begin to get curious around what actually happens with death.
Well, to dealing with the fear of death, let's face it, fear of death, always, most of our fears come from the unknown, okay? What we don't understand, we fear, okay?
Mm.
Usually. And because death is the most misunderstood concept, okay, in the Western world, okay? And that's something we can talk about civilizations. They're quite different, Eastern world with the Western world anyway. But in the Western world, because it's the unknown, actually the great antidote would be understanding, researching, okay? Because for some reason, they get this concept that, no, that is not something that can be researched. No, that's always a mystery. So they don't do it, okay? But they can find those answers, okay? As we've been talking before. So to face your fears, okay, go through them, okay? And the answers are there. So once you know something, it's like, well, homosexuality wasn't really feared in the Victorian times, okay? It was really feared. It was this unknown thing nobody wanted to talk about, evil thing, okay? They take it out into the light, okay? They realize, hey, it wasn't that bad. Same thing is with death, okay? You take it into the light, okay? You realize that nothing in this world actually point us to that consciousness will not prevail, okay, in a multidimensional universe, as science is implying nowadays, okay, then you realize that it's not that bad either, you know? So for me, definitely the antidote is knowledge.
Yeah. So what you're saying there is that there is science-backed stuff out there that people can be looking into from a
Absolutely. Now,
curiosity point of
yeah,
view around death.
absolutely. Now, the confusing part is that most scientists, okay, they are not ready to, even them to accept this, okay? They are so stuck in the Victorian times, and as well the fear of shame, okay, thinking outside the box, okay. They know actually many years ago, okay, has been proven that actually we are not matter, we are energy, that energy, matter is made of energy, okay, yes, and they can hardly face it, you know. Energy doesn't die, okay? It transforms, but doesn't die, you know. And they cannot really apply this concept. The multidimensional world, okay, they are like, ooh. And most fascinating, if you get into dark matter or dark energy, okay, that there are this matter, dark matter, it seems that 95% of the universe, okay, it's actually dark matter and dark energy. There are these things that are not physical, okay, that they are there, okay, but they cannot measure them because they just have physical instruments, okay, to measure it. So they cannot measure it, but it is there. They know it's there, okay. Now, wouldn't that obviously be this multidimensional world that we're talking about? 95% of the universe, okay.
Mhm.
So just put the piece of the puzzle, the pieces of the puzzle together,
Yeah.
okay. It's
Yeah.
quite obvious nowadays.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, say somebody wanted to go on that journey,
Mm-hmm.
where would they begin?
It really depends. Okay. For example, many of them, I saw this great library in central London, in Leicester Square, very near Leicester Square. It's called Watkins. Okay, and it's this library dedicated. Okay, it's from the 1800 something. It's a really old library, and it's for all this mystical stuff. Okay, all sorts of religions and this and that. It's a really fascinating thing. But it depends as well which kind of people they are. Are they more intuitive? Are they really mental people, very intellectual? It really depends, okay,
Mm.
how they are, where to start,
Yeah.
okay? So for more intellectual people, I would start maybe with science, okay? But be careful with the scientists that they still this old school scientists, that there are a lot of them. You need to find more scientists that they are willing to think outside the box and to acknowledge their own discoveries, okay? Like quantum physics, you know, and
Mm.
string theory. So it depends if they're intellectual or intuitive, really.
Mm. Okay. And I know there's a lot out there on near-death experience. You talk about OBEs, but
Oh,
also
yeah,
near-death
absolutely.
experiences and
Yes,
learnings from those
absolutely.
things.
Yeah. Now, I don't go that in detail because actually I cannot show that or as scientific or as proof because um, there's not something you can experience. So it would just be information, you know,
Mm.
in a sense. But absolutely, there are lots of them. I saw very interesting researches. The latest research about them, they're really, really fascinating, I have to say.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah, what they
Mm.
all claim after they came back. Okay. They're all the same.
Mm.
That's the
Mm.
fascinating thing. Most of them, they're the same stories. Okay.
Yeah.
They're starting to transcend to a higher dimension, you know. So that's really interesting. Then you start to study which other dimensions are there. the
Mhm.
astral plane and the monadic plane. There are many different planes of existence. Okay. And for example, something that we don't realize, that you still have a body. Okay. Actually, you have many bodies. You have your astral body, you have your monadic body. Okay. And that's something you can experience. Everyone have experienced them when they sleep. Okay. When they're dreaming. When you're dreaming, you're in a sort of astral plane. Okay. It's not reality, but you're there and you're living that. And you have a body. Okay, then.
Mhm.
So you do have an astral body, and that you will experience if you do an OBE, okay, an astral traveling, okay, you get out of your body, but you will have a psychic body, okay, interestingly enough.
Yeah. So fascinating. There's so much here
It
to
is, isn't it?
to
Yeah,
explore.
absolutely. Oh,
I'm just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just thinking
absolutely.
of the person that may be listening to this. Maybe they identify as, say, atheistic, don't have any
Yeah.
views around anything
Mm-hmm.
outside of
Yeah.
strict concrete Victorian science,
Yes.
and they're
Yeah.
listening, but they want to understand more. Is there a way in for them in relation to all of this?
Absolutely. It really depends how open-minded they are, because I had my stage in my self-discovery to become a complete atheist. Okay. When you start with religion, because I grew up in a Catholic school, okay? And suddenly you start to question all those things, the dogma, the superstition, many things that have been imposed, okay, after Jesus Christ. And you started to think, this is spirituality. I don't believe in any of this, you know? So actually it can be a positive start, okay? When you're an atheist, okay? It's like, no bullshit, okay? Give me real things here, okay? And but suddenly you start to come across, okay? Science, okay? Talking about multidimensional worlds, okay? About this matter, okay, that is there, but we cannot see it, that is dark matter. That is the astral world. Then you start reading history. Then, interestingly enough, okay, you start to see that what all these mystical leaders were saying actually is really interesting stuff. Okay, it's very different than what Jesus Christ was saying, than what Christianity says nowadays. Okay, go back to the basics, what Muhammad said and what is written afterwards, what it has been used from him. Okay, what Buddha said. Okay, and then you have a really fascinating journey that with common sense, okay, and an intellectual, okay, will find it quite clearly over there, okay. But it really depends how open-minded they are
Mm,
and how comfortable would they be to think outside the box, okay.
mm,
So that really has more to do than anything, okay. Are you
yeah.
willing to get out of your comfort zone, okay? And it applies to you, to your work, isn't it?
Mm,
Who's ready to make a positive change in their lives? The people that are ready to get out of their comfort zone, aren't they? It's
yeah.
never easy. Okay. Well, this is even more difficult, but trust me, the outcome is really fascinating. Okay, because actually Nietzsche has been talking about this, like living as a superhuman, in the sense that someone that is completely free, someone that has experienced their own immortality. It's someone that is beyond the fear of death. That means complete freedom. You understand?
Mm, mm,
Living with complete freedom, there's nothing like it. Okay? Knowing that what's the worst that can happen to you? Dying, that doesn't exist. What else can happen? You feel completely free. Okay? To live the life exactly as you want, you know?
mm,
That's really life changing. So it's a really interesting journey. It's a
mm,
fascinating journey,
mm, mm. Yeah, that is fascinating when you think about that.
isn't it?
How differently we could live our lives if we looked at things through that lens. I mean, I've looked at it through the lens of appreciating the present more, in
Mm-hmm.
when you know that death is on the horizon, it's in your periphery.
Yeah,
So I've gone on,
yeah.
meditation retreats where that's been the focus, and it allows you
Mm-hmm.
to get more present.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But that's still in a way coming from a place of fear. We're fearing at some point there's going to be a loss, so we need to hang on to the
Mm-hmm.
present. Whereas
Yeah.
looking at it through the lens you're talking about, it gives more freedom for that immortality
Doesn't it?
lens.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, I mean, there's going to be people at all different levels of their journey here, and across the spectrum from nope, not buying into any of this to yeah, already done that. And I think the key to to entry to any of this is just having an
Yeah.
open mind, right? Because there's stuff out there, is what you're saying, but it's
Yeah.
just you just need to go and explore and find what sits for
Absolutely.
you.
Exactly.
And I
Yes.
love that idea
Exactly.
of experience as well. There are things that you can
Absolutely.
go and
That's very
experience in
important.
relation to
Yes,
this.
yes, yeah. I always insist this is not another belief system, okay? Because
Yeah.
many times it's just there, another belief system. What good is that when you're going to die, okay? When you know you have 1 month to live, okay? A belief system. Yeah, might believe it today, but tomorrow I might not, okay?
Mm,
So what kind of solace would that give you, okay? When you don't believe it, okay? You might believe it, you might not, okay? No, you need knowledge. You need to know, okay? Because then you will know about things. Knowledge doesn't change, okay? It can grow your knowledge, it can expand, okay? But it doesn't change. No, tomorrow you don't believe in it. No, you know it already, okay?
mm,
So that stacks really with you. That sticks, and that's very important, okay? It has to
okay.
stack with you. And knowledge does that. But knowledge is experience, okay?
Mm,
Let's not forget that, okay? Even the scientific discoveries on that, that is information, that's not knowledge,
yeah.
okay? Very interesting information and really interesting now that actually, okay, if they're moving out of their own physical reality into this multidimensional world, but it's just information,
Mm,
okay? So knowledge is essential, okay? I see that when they're dying, okay? It's very different from the people that believe or the people that they know, it's
mm.
really a game changer, yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And
Hmm.
even just talking about death is shown to reduce anxiety around it, right? So having
Absolutely.
someone
Well,
like
exactly.
yourself
That's
to
how we
talk
start.
about, like we have
Absolutely.
these death
Yes.
cafes that are popping up, that start
Yes,
opening up the
yes, isn't it?
conversations around
Yeah, I
this
know. How
rather
fascinating.
than
Yes,
having it
absolutely.
as hidden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very interesting. You know why? Because it seems science and religion that started to find a common ground at last. Okay, so that's really, really interesting.
mm,
But there were completely polarities before, one versus the other. Now, actually, it started to find a common ground. You
yeah.
know, so then the possibilities are amazing.
Mm. We could go on and on with this. It's such an
I told
interesting
you.
area, and we've only just touched the surface.
Yeah.
I'm curious for the listeners that are listening to this,
Hmm.
and they could be all across that spectrum, in terms of
Yeah.
experience and curiosity around this. What would you say is one takeaway for everybody from your experience of working with people
Hmm.
who are dying?
What do you mean? Sorry.
What message would you give to the people that are listening across the board, the
Uh,
skeptical to the not skeptical in
mhm.
relation to everything you said? What would be your message to everyone?
My message is you will have to deal with this sooner or later, okay? It's the own experience, okay? There is 100% certainty that you will go through, okay? The more you prepare to it, the better, okay? Find your own way, okay? Don't let people, okay? Let yourself to be guided, but find your own way, okay? It doesn't have to be a certain one. Just find your own way, but look for it. Think about it, okay? The answers are there. Look for them, okay? Whatever
Mm,
is good with you, stick to it, okay? But look for the answers because they are there and you need to prepare yourself, okay? Because when
mm,
it comes, okay, and it will come, okay, no one is prepared. And it really changes, okay? The last stage of your life can be a really, really fascinating phase, okay? Work for that.
mm. Powerful stuff. And if people want to do that work with you, what's the best
Mhm.
way to get in contact with you, and what would that journey look like?
Oh, they can contact me they will find my contact details on my website is luisdeoribe.com, or they can find me on YouTube as well. I have my channel where I speak about these topics is as well Luis De Oribe. And the journey as well, it really depends how they come to me. Okay, they've been diagnosed or not, and they're the last stages in which ones with the different approaches, but yeah, if they have been diagnosed, the 3 steps, okay?
Mm,
Because they
mm,
need to go through those three, okay?
yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how we're all quite similar when we're about to die. The values are always the same. The conclusions are always the same. Doesn't matter how different lives they have lived, okay? From a rich person, a poor person, successful one. It's amazing. They all want to get rid of guilt, to leave any something behind, and to try to understand what's going on. It's
Mm,
always the same.
Yeah. That's such a precious takeaway for those that are listening. Have it to have that
Hmm.
information
Uh-huh.
from the horse's mouth, from your experience working with people. And it's so
Hmm.
great that you are out there as somebody doing this work. And I just want to honor, acknowledge that, that you are
No,
somebody who's
I
stepped
think
into
it's
that path for
growing.
people.
We are starting to appear more and more. Yeah.
Yeah, we need more of that.
Yeah.
Well, look, we could talk on and on about this, and I'd love
Hmm.
to.
Hmm.
But yeah, time has flown today. So I just want to say
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
talking
much
on
for
this
having me.
really
It's
important
been a real
topic.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank
been
you.
great to get stuck in, and we're going to drop your details in the show notes. So if anybody wants to get in
Okay.
contact and start this journey and do the work,
Hmm.
um, then they can. And
Fantastic.
if anybody resonates with this topic or anything
Hmm.
that we've shared, so if they've been on their own experience of this, of journeying, or you want to hear more about the areas of this with grief and suicide, do get in contact with us. We'd love to hear from you. And our next conversation is something that's kind of linked to this as well. It's the art of letting go, trusting in something greater with spiritual psychologist and life and leadership coach Sam Starr. That's going to be a really interesting conversation
Interesting.
then as well. So thank you so much, Louise. We really, really appreciate having you
Thank you
on
very much.
and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.